annual congregational meeting, something that's happened here in Alpena for 157 years. It's been going on in America, though, since the Pilgrims arrived on the Mayflower in 1620. And next year, that will be 400 years of annual congregational meetings in America. Wow. What we're doing here today at our meeting will be receiving reports on the state of our church. That's really what that whole written document was about. And I think that the government got the idea of a State of the Union address from the Congregational churches that always had a State of the Church address at the end of January. We also will be electing our officers, and we'll be setting our budget for the new year. Those are the basis of what used to be called town hall meetings up in New England. It's the very birthplace of our democracy. It helps set the pattern for the rule of local law in America. And so I hope that you feel some of the pride of ownership of so many American values that were born from those Pilgrim separatists who fled Europe. This annual gathering of our membership is much more than just a functional meeting required to do our business as a church. Now, it is that. We have to do it annually in order to continue to be a recognized business enterprise called a church. It is that. But its historical roots are much deeper. They're intertwined with the concept of autonomous community leadership, autonomous ownership of the church as a ministry and a mission in a community. It's intertwined with that God-given right of responsibility of working together in Jesus' name for God's sake, for the best of our community, to the best of our ability, trusting the power of God's Holy Spirit to guide us and to empower us. That's what is really afoot in our meetings. Last week I pointed out that our congregational tradition casts a wide net of inclusion. As we say every Sunday, whoever you are, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. And that used to be the American way. It certainly is still part of being UCC. You are welcome here. In my little ditty of a song, I said, you are welcome any day if you want to come and pray in the First Church of Alpena, Michigan. And also I said, you know you're in a special place that welcomes you. Those are the hallmarks of our tradition, the inclusion of people, whoever they are. We are a non-creedal church, as I mentioned earlier. In fact, one of the things that sets our kind of a church apart from others is that we don't recite the creed. We don't force people to believe it in order to join our membership. We are a free church. It means we are not beholden to higher authorities. We are not beholden to mandated creeds that are imposed upon us by others. That's a big part of the reason those separatist pilgrims left the Anglican Church and left the Lutheran Church and left the Calvinist Reformed churches and left the Roman Catholic institutions behind in Europe. They wanted a free, autonomous, living congregation in every community, apart from outside constraints. Now, we do work collegially with all other churches, at least all those churches who are willing to work with us Congregationalists. We collaborate with Methodists, with Presbyterians, with the Community of Christ, with the First Baptist, with all the Lark churches, the Lutheran, Anglican, Episcopal, and Roman Catholics. On this coming Wednesday, we will celebrate the Week of Prayer for Christian Unity at St. Anne's Catholic Church, and I'll be right up there with the others taking part in the service. We are ecumenical. We are interconnected. And even though, as I said, we're a non-creedal church, I did write a musical version of the Apostles' Creed that I sang for you this morning. Because those words mean a whole lot for all those other churches around us. And it expresses many things that I also believe. So as a Congregationalist, we're not against any other religion, any other church, any other denomination. We're not against anybody. As a matter of fact, we even get along very well with many a good atheist and secular humanitarian. We're on their side because we know they're on God's side too, even though they don't admit it. The official motto of our United Church of Christ is Jesus' prayer for the church in John 17, verse 21, that they may all be one. We are a united and a uniting people by nature, by temperament, by history. Unlike other more narrowly defined Christian denominations and narrowly defined independent evangelical churches, we put a high value on maintaining harmony in the midst of diversity. Our slogan from more than a century ago, as I said last Sunday, is in essentials, unity. In non-essentials, diversity. And in all things, charity. That is love. Love first. Love trumps hate. I wanted to follow up those thoughts from last Sunday by hearing a snippet of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. First, his advice about getting past the tendency we have to be angry with people, to insult them and call them fools. Any or all of which makes a person liable to judgment, according to Jesus. And second, his example of reconciling with your adversary before you take each other to court. In the first case, as Boris read for us, God-fearing people thought they had done enough when they refrained from killing their adversary. Thou shalt not kill, everything that leads up to that or thereof, okay. According to Jesus, though, it's not enough just to think you're okay in God's eyes because you didn't actually kill that person that makes you so angry. That one who you enjoy insulting. That one who you have publicly called a fool. No, if Jesus is to be believed, it's holding those kinds of attitudes in your heart and expressing them through abusive language in public that puts you in the wrong. It's not in the killing, but in the public disrespect that the initial sin arises. That's what has to be cleaned out. Unfortunately, it seems there's a lot of that going on nowadays. Ad hominem attacks on one's opponents, rude language about one's adversaries, and personal insults seems to be the new norm. Just last Saturday, for example, Rachel Marston, a syndicated columnist in the Alpena News, wrote, "In Washington, D.C., partisan politics takes precedence over anything else, including pragmatic and constructive solutions to problems. People will cross the street to avoid someone with the opposite ideology. This mindset has diffused into American society. Outside of Washington, it's more common to find that someone can disagree with another person's ideology while still respecting or appreciating that individual," unquote. And I would hope so. I would hope outside the belt of Washington we can get our act together without such acrimony. I would hope. On the very next page, in the very same paper, in an editorial from the Grand Haven Tribune, I read this: "The shameful name-calling and political poking at each other is certainly distracting from the task at hand, and that is running this country in the most efficient and safe manner as possible. It is truly shameful that grown men and women can't do what they're elected and highly paid to do," unquote. Yeah, politicians are giving politics a bad name. On the very next page, in the very same newspaper, I read about a group of 5 black men who were shouting vulgar insults while protesting centuries of oppression, dozens of white Catholic high school students visiting Washington, D.C. for a rally to end abortion, and Native Americans marching to end injustice for indigenous peoples across the globe who have seen their lands overrun by outside settlers. The 3 groups met for just a few minutes Friday at the base of the Lincoln Memorial, an encounter captured in videos that went viral over the weekend, and again cast a spotlight on a polarized nation that doesn't appear to agree on anything. "It was an ugly encounter of spewed epithets," wrote Jeffrey Collins in the Associated Press, "but one that nevertheless ended with no punches thrown, no violence. Still, the videos were all over social media, again appearing to illustrate a nation of such deep divisions, racial, religious, ideological, that no one was willing to listen to the other's point of view." Did you get that? No one was willing to listen to the other's point of view. And then, in a follow-up article in last Wednesday's paper, I read that the Covington, Kentucky Catholic High School, where the boys were from, who had laughed so derisively at an older Native American who was drumming on Friday, temporarily closed down as a result from the fallout for all the media images. The president tweeted on Tuesday that the students from Covington Catholic High School have become symbols of fake news and how evil it can be. However, Albert Running Wolf, a Native American from Fort Thomas, Kentucky, referred to Nathan Phillips, the Indian drummer who was accosted during the event, as an honorable man who was trying to be a peacemaker but ended up being verbally attacked. He said Phillips deserves an apology for what he endured. It doesn't matter what color they were, what political factions they were. It was disrespect, straightforward. For his part, Nathan Phillips offered to visit the boys' school for a dialogue with them about cultural appropriation, about racism, and about the importance of listening to and respecting diverse cultures. Let's create space for the teaching of tolerance to happen, he said, according to the Cincinnati Enquirer. I have faith that human beings can use a moment like this to find a way to gain understanding from one another. Unquote. To me, that's taking the high road. Bravo. And then, just yesterday, Justin Hinckley, Alpena News managing editor, wrote regarding his Facebook, cursing, name-calling, hurled accusations serve no one, not even the people doing the cussing. Unverified accusations do not further the public's understanding of how to make their community safer, healthier, or more prosperous. Name-calling does not help the public press its elected officials to further justice. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions, he wrote, and speech is free in this country. But we don't want to be the place people go to freely drop F-bombs or put others down. So please, keep it civil when you comment on our stories. Unquote. When a newspaper editor has to ask its own readers to clean up the content of what they're posting,